Arrival, the house that waited. The rain had started hours before they arrived. It came down in sheets, thick enough to blur the road and drown the sound of their tires. The trees lining the narrow country lane swayed like black figures in mourning, and the headlights barely cut through the gloom. Thomas glanced at Elena in the passenger seat. She hadn't said much since they left the city. Her fingers were locked together in her lap, pale and trembling. The house appeared out of nowhere, tall, dark, sunken into the earth like it was trying to retreat from the world. Its windows were black, lifeless. The porch sagged like a tired sigh, and ivy had claimed the entire left side of the building, choking the bricks in green veins. They stopped in front. The wind howled through the surrounding trees, and something metallic clanged loosely in the breeze. "Are you sure this is the place?" Elena asked. Thomas nodded, holding up the faded envelope. It had no return address, just a typewritten message. Inheritance confirmed. Black Hollow Estate now in your name. Keys enclosed. He had never heard of the house before. No one in his family had mentioned it. But the letter came with legal documents and a deed. It seemed legitimate. Too legitimate. They stepped inside. The door creaked on its hinges, resisting. The entryway smelled of mildew and forgotten time. The air was heavy, almost damp, and the floorboards groaned under their steps. Everything was covered in dust, thick, undisturbed for years. A staircase wound up into darkness, and long hallways stretched to either side. Elena turned on her flashlight. The beam swept over portraits, old, cracked faces whose eyes had faded into ghostly smudges. Each room they entered felt colder than the last, as if the house had a memory of its own and didn't like to be disturbed. In the kitchen, an old grandfather clock stood still, its hands frozen at 3:03. "I don't like this," Elena whispered. Thomas tried to smile. "It's just old. Give it a day, it'll feel like home." But that night, as they lay in the bedroom upstairs, they heard the first sound, soft scratching from inside the walls. Not mice. Not insects. Something else. Something that waited. The footsteps beneath the floor. Elena kept hearing the noises. Each night they grew louder, more deliberate. At first it had been the scratching on the hallway walls, but now the sound came from beneath the floorboards. Low, rhythmic tapping, like someone was crawling just below them. Thomas tried to rationalize it. Old pipes. Animals. Houses like this make weird noises. But Elena's eyes told a different story, eyes that hadn't slept in days. On the fifth night, the tapping became banging. Boom, boom, boom. It came from directly beneath their bed. Elena screamed, and Thomas leapt up, grabbing a flashlight. He rushed down to the first floor, into the basement door, the one that wouldn't open before. Now it creaked ajar. The air behind it was ice cold. They descended slowly. The basement was damp, filled with moldy boxes and collapsed shelves. But the smell was worse, not mildew or decay. Something sharper. Something alive. Thomas swung the flashlight. Its beam fell on claw marks, deep gouges in the stone walls, long and purposeful. On the floor lay shredded pieces of what used to be a blanket, and near the far corner, bones. Small ones. Human? Animal? He couldn't tell. Elena didn't come down. She refused. That night, Thomas sat up with a kitchen knife by the bed. At 3 a.m., the air thickened again. Not colder, heavier, like it had weight. A single breath, dry, ragged, echoed through the room. He didn't sleep after that. The next night, Thomas placed a camera in the basement. It was motion-activated, infrared-capable. He wanted to prove to himself that there was nothing, that his mind was just unraveling. When he checked the footage the next morning, there were no creatures, no people. But at exactly 3:03 a.m., the camera flickered. Then it caught a single frame, not motion, not an object, a face. Wide, pale, sunken, and it was looking straight into the lens. The witnesses. The next morning, Thomas searched online for anything resembling what they were experiencing. He avoided obvious conspiracy sites and instead dug deep into forgotten forums and archive threads. It was on a now-defunct Reddit page, r/urban occult, that he found the first mention of the rake. One user described seeing it crouched at the edge of their bed. Another said it lived underground, moving through old tunnels and basements. Nearly every account mentioned the same time, 3:03 a.m., a time where it seemed to cross into their world without resistance. Thomas bookmarked everything. He printed out testimonies, drew timelines, highlighted overlapping details. Elena watched in silence as the walls of the living room slowly turned into a crime board. Red string, newspaper clippings, maps of the property. One post stood out more than the rest. A man named Marcus claimed his brother had died after seeing the creature. He even uploaded a blurry image, a gaunt figure with hollow eyes crouched in the distance behind a swing set. Thomas messaged Marcus, expecting nothing. But the next day, he received a reply. If you're seeing it, it's already chosen you. Leave the house. Burn it. Don't try to understand it. That's how it survives. Elena wanted to go. She begged him to leave with her. But Thomas couldn't. Not yet. Something inside him needed answers. Hollow Earth. 3 days later, Thomas found the entrance. It was behind the wall in the basement, hidden behind an old shelf. When he removed the rotted wood, there was a tunnel. Narrow, damp. It descended sharply, as if digging toward the center of the world. He brought a flashlight and his camera. Elena refused to come. The tunnel walls were clawed like the basement, thousands of marks, layered and overlapping. After walking 20 minutes, the air grew warmer. Not from heat, but something else. It felt infested. He came to a chamber. At the center, a mound of dirt, bones, and shredded cloth. And on the walls, symbols, drawn in what looked like blood. Circles, eyes, claws. The camera began to glitch. Then the sound started, scratching, distant at first. Then closer, closer. He turned to leave. But the tunnel behind him was darker now. The flashlight flickered. Something moved. A figure, low, hunched, pale, crawling upside down on the ceiling. He ran. He never looked back. The last night, Thomas and Elena packed to leave. She didn't ask questions. He didn't speak. But at 2:57 a.m., the power went out. The hallway lights burst one by one. The temperature dropped like winter itself had entered the house. Elena screamed from upstairs. Thomas ran. She wasn't in the room. The bed was torn. Scratch marks lined the walls. A trail of blood led into the bathroom, then stopped. Gone. The clock read 3:03. He screamed her name into the night. From the woods, something answered. A whisper. A breath. And then, silence. Epilogue, the thread. A month later, a user on a conspiracy forum uploaded a video clip titled, Real Rake Footage? The quality was bad. The camera was shaking. But for a second, in the dark, you could see a crouched thing. Pale. Watching. In the comments below, someone posted. Same thing took my brother. Never stops watching. Just moves on to the next one. And then, hours later, another reply. It came to my house last night. 3:03 a.m.